Everything begins in 1934 when Adolf Hitler summons Ferdinand Porsche to a meeting in Berlin. Hitler is obsessed with the idea of creating a car for the people, the Volkswagen. He wants every German worker to be able to afford a car, for entire families to be able to travel, for Germany to become motorized. Ferdinand Porsche is already a renowned engineer by this time. He's worked for Austria Daimler, designed racing cars, built luxury vehicles for Daimler-Benz. But now, at 59 years old, he's running his own engineering consultancy in Stuttgart. He's brilliant, stubborn, and always looking for the next challenge. Hitler gives him what seems like an impossible task. Design a car that can carry 2 adults and 3 children, reach 100 kilometers per hour, 62 miles per hour, consume less than 7 liters per 100 kilometers, and cost no more than 990 Reichsmarks. For context, 990 Reichsmarks was about the price of a small motorcycle. Most cars at the time cost 3,000 to 5,000 Reichsmarks. Hitler was asking for the impossible. But Ferdinand Porsche accepts the challenge. Ferdinand and his team begin working immediately. They're not trying to make a luxury car or a sports car. They're trying to make something simple, reliable, and cheap to produce. The key decisions they make will echo through automotive history. The engine placement, they put the engine in the back. This eliminates the need for a long drive shaft running to the front wheels. Simpler. Cheaper. More interior space. The engine type, a flat 4-boxer engine air-cooled. No radiator needed. No water pump. No hoses that can leak. Fewer things to break. Perfect for a people's car that needs to be maintained by regular mechanics in small towns. Rear-wheel drive, with the engine in the back, powering the rear wheels makes perfect sense. Direct power transfer. Simple. The body shape, rounded, aerodynamic, Beetle-like. It reduces wind resistance and looks friendly, approachable, not intimidating like the massive luxury cars of the era. By 1938, prototypes are ready. The car is officially called the KDF wagon, Kraft durch Freude, Strength through Joy, named after a Nazi leisure organization. But everyone starts calling it the Beetle because of its shape. A massive factory is built in a new town called Wolfsburg, designed to produce 1.5 million cars per year. Workers are promised they can buy a Beetle through a savings program, pay 5 Reichsmarks per week, and eventually you'll get your car. But then September 1, 1939 happens. Germany invades Poland. World War II begins. The Beetle factory never produces civilian cars during the war. Instead, it's converted to military production. Kübelwagen, military jeep-like vehicles based on the Beetle chassis. Schwimmwagen, amphibious military vehicles. Parts for aircraft, weapons, munitions. Ferdinand Porsche becomes deeply involved in the Nazi war effort. He designs military vehicles, works on tank prototypes, including the enormous Maus tank, the heaviest tank ever built, and uses forced labor from concentration camps in his factories. The factory in Wolfsburg becomes a target for Allied bombing. By 1945, it's heavily damaged. The machinery is broken, the buildings are full of holes, and there are unexploded bombs everywhere. When the war ends in May 1945, Ferdinand Porsche is arrested by French authorities and imprisoned as a war criminal and collaborator with the Nazi regime. He's 70 years old and will spend the next 22 months in a French prison. This is where his son, Ferry Porsche, steps into the story. Ferry Porsche, full name, Ferdinand Anton Ernst Porsche, is 36 years old in 1945. He's grown up watching his father build cars. He has a degree in engineering. He's worked alongside his father on the Beetle project and various military vehicles. But now everything is gone. His father is in prison in France. The Porsche engineering office in Stuttgart has been bombed. Germany is divided into occupation zones. The family has no money. The Porsche name is associated with the Nazi regime. Ferry and a small team of loyal engineers, including Karl Rabe, his father's closest colleague, flee to Gmünd, Austria, a small mountain town where they have a tiny workshop. It's barely a garage. They have some tools, some drafting tables, and their knowledge. The situation is desperate. They need money. They need work. They need to survive. Ferry starts taking on consulting projects, designing tractors for farmers, repairing vehicles, doing whatever engineering work they can find. An Italian industrialist named Piero Duzio hires them to design a racing car, the Cisitalia 360. The payment from this project gives them enough money to survive and, more importantly, to work on something Ferry has been dreaming about. Ferry doesn't want to build people's cars anymore. He wants to build sports cars. While his father sits in a French prison cell, Ferry Porsche starts sketching his dream car. He says something that will become legendary. I looked around but could not find the car I'd been dreaming of, so I decided to build it myself. But there's a massive problem. Materials are scarce. Steel is rationed. Aluminum is expensive. Rubber is hard to find. And most importantly, they have no money to develop a completely new engine and transmission from scratch. Ferry looks at what's available and makes a brilliant, practical decision. We'll use Volkswagen parts. Here's his thinking. The Beetle is now starting to be produced again. The British have taken over the Wolfsburg factory and begun rebuilding production. Volkswagen parts are becoming available. And Ferry knows the Beetle inside and out. His father designed it and Ferry himself worked on the project. So the plan becomes, take the Beetle's mechanical components, the engine, the transmission, the suspension geometry, but build a completely different car around them. Lighter, lower, more aerodynamic, sportier. By late 1947, Ferdinand Porsche is finally released from prison. He's broken, exhausted, and will never fully recover. But he's home and he can see what his son is working on. Ferdinand gives his blessing. The project continues. On this date, in the small workshop in Gmünd, Austria, the Porsche 356-1 Roadster receives its official registration. This is the first car to carry the Porsche name. Let's be clear about what it is. Engine, Volkswagen Beetle engine. 1.1-liter, air-cooled, flat-four boxer. Originally 35 horsepower. Mounted in the rear, just like the Beetle. Transmission, modified Volkswagen gearbox. Suspension, based on Volkswagen trailing arm design. But here's what's different. Body, hand-formed aluminum, not steel like the Beetle. This makes it significantly lighter, about 590 kilograms, 1,300 pounds, compared to the Beetle's 730 kilograms, 1,600 pounds. Aerodynamics, sleeker, lower, more streamlined than the rounded Beetle shape. Tuning, the engine is tuned for more power. The suspension is firmed up. The steering is sharpened. Everything is optimized for driving pleasure, not just transportation. Result, the Porsche 356 can reach 135 km per hour, 84 miles per hour, compared to the Beetle's 100 km per hour, 62 miles per hour. It handles better, feels more responsive, and despite using people's car parts, it drives like a sports car. The first Porsche 356 Roadster is entered in races. It wins its class in several events. People start talking about this little Austrian sports car built from Volkswagen parts. Ferry and his team begin building more cars, one by hand in Gmünd. They're making maybe one car per month. Each body is hand-formed over wooden bucks by craftsmen who used to make pots and pans. Who's buying them? Not many people. Germany and Austria are still recovering from the war. But there are some wealthy enthusiasts, Swiss businessmen, Austrian industrialists, a few Americans, who want something different. Something light, nimble and fun. The Porsche 356 costs about 7,000 Swiss francs, roughly 7 times the price of a Beetle. But for those who could afford it, it was worth every penny. By 1950, things are improving in Germany. The Marshall Plan money is flowing in. Reconstruction is underway. The economy is starting to recover. Ferry decides it's time to move production back to Germany, to Zuffenhausen, a suburb of Stuttgart. This is where Porsche's headquarters remains to this day. The workshop in Gmünd had built about 50 cars by hand. Now, in Stuttgart they can start actual production. Still small scale, still hand-built in many ways but with better facilities and more workers. Meanwhile, Ferdinand Porsche's health is declining. He suffered a stroke in 1950. On January 30, 1951, at the age of 75, Ferdinand Porsche dies. He sees the beginning of his son's success, but he never sees Porsche become a global brand. Ferry continues alone. While Porsche is building sports cars in Stuttgart, Volkswagen is exploding in popularity. Volkswagen in the 1950s. The Beetle becomes the symbol of Germany's Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. Everyone wants one. Production goes from thousands per year to hundreds of thousands. By 1955, Volkswagen produces its 1 millionth Beetle. The Beetle is cheap, around 4,000 Deutsche Marks. Reliable. Easy to fix. Perfect for families rebuilding their lives. Volkswagen exports Beetles to America, where they become an unexpected hit, especially with young people who want an alternative to big, gas-guzzling American cars. Porsche in the 1950s. The 356 evolves through several versions, A, B, C, each more refined than the last. The engines get more powerful. 1.3-liter, 44 horsepower. 1.5-liter 55 horsepower, 1.6-liter 75 horsepower. Eventually, the Carrera versions with 100-plus HP. Porsche starts winning races. Le Mans, the Carrera Panamericana hill climbs across Europe. The brand builds a reputation for performance and reliability. But production is still tiny compared to Volkswagen. Porsche makes maybe 5,000 to 10,000 cars per year. These are hand-built, expensive, exclusive. The paradox becomes clear. Both companies use the same basic engine layout, boxer, air-cooled, rear-mounted. Both have rear-wheel drive. Both have roots in the same design office. But Volkswagen makes cars for the masses. Porsche makes cars for the passionate few. By the early 1960s, Ferry Porsche realizes something. The Beetle engine is becoming outdated. Volkswagen isn't developing it much further. And Porsche needs more power, more refinement, more potential. It's time to break free. In September 1963 at the Frankfurt Motor Show, Porsche unveils the Porsche 901, later renamed 911 due to a trademark dispute with Peugeot. This is the turning point. The Porsche 911 engine. Flat-six boxer, not flat-four like the Beetle. 2.0 liters, producing 130 horsepower. Air-cooled, still following the Beetle philosophy of simplicity. Still mounted in the rear. But this time, it's a completely Porsche design. No more Volkswagen parts. No more shared engines. This is 100% Porsche. The 911 becomes an instant icon. It's beautiful, fast, 210 km per hour / 130 miles per hour, and handles like nothing else on the road. The rear engine layout makes it tricky to drive at the limit. It wants to spin around if you're not careful. But that makes it engaging, exciting, alive. From 1964 onward, the Porsche 911 defines the brand. It will remain in continuous production for over 60 years and counting. Meanwhile, the Beetle continues its own journey, but in a completely different direction. On the surface, Volkswagen and Porsche seem like completely separate companies by the 1970s. Volkswagen expands beyond the Beetle. Golf, 1974, replaces the Beetle as the people's car. Passat, Jetta, Scirocco, more modern water-cooled designs. Acquires Audi, 1965. Porsche expands its lineup. 911 continues to evolve. 914, 1969 to 1976. A mid-engine sports car developed jointly with VW. 924, 1976. A front-engine model, controversial among purists. 944, 1982. Refined version of the 924. 928, 1977. A luxury Grand Tourer meant to replace the 911 but never does. But behind the scenes, cooperation continues. Porsche does consulting work for VW, designing engines and developing vehicles. The Porsche 914 is actually a joint project. Built in a VW factory using some VW parts, but sold as both a VW Porsche in Europe and just Porsche in America. They share suppliers, technology, sometimes even engineers. The relationship is friendly but separate. Two branches of the same family tree going their own ways. The 1990s, struggles and reconnection. By the 1990s, both companies face challenges. Porsche's crisis. Sales dropped dramatically in the early 1990s, especially in America during a recession. The 911 is looking outdated. Competitors like Ferrari and BMW are catching up. Porsche almost goes bankrupt. Volkswagen's expansion. Under Chairman Ferdinand Porsche, Ferry Porsche's nephew, VW starts building an automotive empire. Acquires Lamborghini, 1998, Bentley, 1998, Bugatti, 1998. Develops new platforms that can be shared across brands. Porsche's savior comes from an unexpected place, SUVs. In 2002, Porsche releases the Cayenne, a luxury SUV that purists hate. A Porsche SUV? Blasphemy. But that customers love. It becomes Porsche's best-selling vehicle and saves the company financially. Here's the twist. The Cayenne shares its platform with the Volkswagen Touareg. Same basic structure, same factories built alongside VW Touaregs in Bratislava, Slovakia, but completely different execution, styling, and pricing. Porsche charges twice as much for essentially the same mechanical foundation. And people pay it because of the badge, the refinement, the handling, the brand. This marks the beginning of the modern era of platform sharing between VW and Porsche. This is where the story gets absolutely wild. In 2005, Porsche, now profitable and confident, starts quietly buying shares of Volkswagen. The stated goal, securing cooperation. But in reality, Porsche is trying to take over Volkswagen, a company more than 10 times its size. Here's how it unfolds. 2005 to 2007. Porsche slowly accumulates VW shares. By 2007 they own about 31%. March 2008. Porsche announces it controls 35% and is seeking 75%, which would give them complete control under German law. October 2008. This is where it gets insane. Porsche announces it actually already controls 74.1% of VW shares through a combination of direct ownership and options. This announcement causes one of the craziest days in stock market history. Hedge funds had been short-selling VW stock, betting the price would fall. Suddenly they realize there are almost no shares available to buy. Porsche owns 74%, the German state of Lower Saxony owns 20%, meaning only 6% is freely tradable. Short sellers panic. They need to buy shares to cover their positions, but there are no shares available. VW stock price explodes. It briefly becomes the most valuable company in the world, even more valuable than ExxonMobil. At over €1,000 per share, it had been around €200 a few weeks earlier. Hedge funds lose billions. Porsche makes billions from the short squeeze. But there's a problem. Porsche borrowed heavily to buy all these shares. They took on about €10 billion in debt. Then the 2008 financial crisis hits. Banks stop lending. Credit freezes. Porsche can't raise the money to complete the takeover. And now they're stuck with massive debt they can't refinance. 2009. In a stunning reversal, Volkswagen steps in to save Porsche. Instead of Porsche taking over VW, VW takes over Porsche. The irony is perfect. The small sports car company tried to eat the giant, but ended up being eaten itself. 2012. Volkswagen completes the acquisition, and Porsche SE, the holding company controlled by the Porsche and Peach families, becomes part of Volkswagen Group. Today Porsche is a wholly owned subsidiary of Volkswagen Group alongside Volkswagen passenger cars, Audi, Seat/Cupra, Skoda, Bentley, Lamborghini, Bugatti, Ducati motorcycles, and many others. But here's what's fascinating. Porsche maintains its independence. Shared technology. Modern Porsches and VWs share many components. Porsche Cayenne/VW Touareg/Audi Q7/Lamborghini Urus, all use the MLB platform. Porsche Macan/Audi Q5, share components. Porsche Taycan/Audi e-tron GT, both use the J1 electric platform. In some cases you can find the exact same parts, window switches, climate control modules, infotainment screens, but completely different execution. A VW Touareg costs $60,000 to $80,000. A Porsche Cayenne costs $80,000 to $200,000 plus. Same platform. Completely different. Engines, Porsches are more powerful. Suspension tuning, Porsches is sportier. Interior materials, Porsche uses better leather, aluminum, carbon fiber. Brand perception, Porsche is aspirational, VW is practical. The market positioning. Volkswagen still makes cars for the people. Golf, affordable, practical, reliable. ID.4, affordable electric SUV. Tiguan, family SUV. Porsche makes cars for enthusiasts and luxury buyers. 911, the Icon, starting at $115,000 plus. Taycan, electric sports sedan, $90,000 plus. Cayenne, luxury performance SUV, $80,000 plus. So what is this war between friends? They're partners. Same corporate parent, shared technology, joint development, coordinated strategy. They're rivals. Competing for customers in some segments, VW Golf R versus Porsche 718 Cayman, VW Touareg versus Porsche Cayenne. Their family, the Porsche and Peach families still own a controlling stake in Volkswagen Group through Porsche SE, the holding company. Ferry Porsche's descendants and Ferdinand Porsche's descendants through his daughter, the Peach family, control the entire empire. They share DNA, that flatboxer engine rear-mounted philosophy that Ferdinand designed in the 1930s. It defined the Beetle for decades and the Porsche 911 until the 1990s, when the 911 finally switched to water cooling, though it kept the rear engine layout. This isn't a story with a neat ending. It's an ongoing saga. The impact on both companies. Volkswagen became one of the largest automakers in the world. Produces about 10 million vehicles per year. Operates in every major market. Owns some of the most prestigious brands. Transitioning to electric vehicles. Investing 100 plus billion euros. Porsche became one of the most profitable car companies per vehicle. Produces about 300,000 cars per year, tiny compared to VW, but earns 25 to 30% profit margins, compared to VW's 5 to 8%. Maintains its exclusivity and desirability. Successfully launched into electric vehicles, Taycan, without losing its soul. The lesson: you can come from the same family, share the same technology, even work together closely, and still maintain completely different identities. The Beetle was designed to democratize transportation. The Porsche was designed to elevate it into art. Both succeeded beyond anyone's wildest imagination. In 2023, Volkswagen partially spun off Porsche with an IPO, initial public offering, listing some Porsche shares on the stock market while VW retained majority control. To unlock value, the market values Porsche's brand so highly that making it a separately traded company creates wealth for VW shareholders. So now, Porsche is publicly traded. But VW Group still controls it. And the Porsche Peach families control VW. Which means they control everything. Full circle. Ferdinand Porsche designed the Beetle for Hitler's People's Car project in the 1930s. His son Ferry built sports cars from Beetle parts in a bombed-out workshop in 1948. Those sports cars became legendary. The Beetle became the best-selling car of all time. Both companies grew, diverged, reunited. And today they're one family making cars for everyone. From a €25,000 VW Polo to a €500,000 Porsche 911 GT2 RS. Same blood. Different dreams. That's the war between friends.